Trigger warning, this podcast contains mature themes and discussions of cults, manipulation, and trauma. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to Cultimatum, the culture of cults and human trafficking, where we expose the dark side of control, manipulation, and the human stories behind them. I'm Anonymous Andrew, executive producer and investigator into cult dynamics and coercive control.
And I'm Melody, a cult survivor and advocate for awareness and healing.
This is Cultimatum. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cultimatum podcast, a culture of cults and human trafficking. And my name is Anonymous Andrew. And with me tonight is my co-host, Melody. Melody, who do we have on the show tonight?
Tonight, Andrew, we have Isabella Young. She is a survivor of a messianic cult who has been free for 17 years after escaping a high control group led by her former husband. Isabella's life was forever changed by the murder of her son, an act meant to silence exposure of the leader as a pedophile, a rapist, and a con man. Since leaving, she has focused on healing through her time in nature and expanding her consciousness and learning about cults and mind control to free herself from the cult programming. Isabella, welcome to Cultimatum.
Thank you, Melody and Andrew. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. I'm grateful to be able to speak about cults because it's a topic that everybody needs to understand.
We agree.
They do, and especially in today's times.
Absolutely.
It is very prevalent. Can't wait till we get into this one. So take it away.
I was part of a messianic cult. And so a messianic cult is when the cult leader believes that they're the Messiah, the one who's come to save humanity, the second coming, the Kalki avatar, the Maitreya, this our savior that we've all been waiting for. And that's what this
Or Jesus?
cult leader. Yeah. I don't. Well, yeah, I suppose the second coming of Jesus. Yeah. And he is still running his con job in Southern California, and
Wow.
he has a fairly small group. The interesting thing about this cult is he's been able to stay under the wire with a fairly loyal but small group of, he calls them disciples because, of course, he's the Maitreya and we're all his disciples who are here to help him with his mission. So he's got a core group of disciples who've been tithing to him. Tithing is paying 10% of your gross income or inheritances or gifts or whatever it is. You're supposed to pay that to the guru in order to be in his presence and receive his wisdom, his darshan, which is his presence, and his healing and his benevolence and all that. So they've been paying for years now for him to live his fairly promiscuous lifestyle. So he's still in operation.
Wow. So
And
Isabella, we didn't touch on this in the beginning because I did not name the cult. Did you want to go ahead and name the cult at this time?
the name of the cult is the name of the cult leader, and his name is Louis Dor Domprey. And so his cult is called Louis Dor Domprey Foundation.
So he uses the word foundation to make it sound legitimate?
Yes. Well, he's got a 501c3 as an
Of course.
educational organization, so he's tax-free. Yeah, he's conning everyone, including the government.
Wow.
And he's based where?
In Laguna Hills, I can give you the address, 24822 Lago Drive in Laguna Hills, California. That's his headquarters. And he also has cult homes in, I definitely know in Melbourne. He has a cult organization there where there's a main home, and then there are other homes where the cult members live, and they come to the main home to serve the guru, which basically means work as a slave and do whatever he wants. And that happens also in Australia. He used to have his cult was in New Zealand as well. I haven't actually been involved, like you said, Melody, for 17 years. So I don't know the numbers and I don't know the extent of it at the moment, but he's certainly not coming out to the world as he told us he was going to do. He's just keeping it small at the moment.
So how did you get involved?
Oh, well, I'll just do a brief background so you can understand why I got involved. I was 3 months pregnant with my second child, and my husband died suddenly. which totally just destroyed my life, my idea of family, future, a farm, and whatever. And I was completely lost. In fact, I just wanted to die. And so I spent a lot of years trying to find a place to live, trying to figure out who I was, what I wanted to do, and stop this death wish that I had because I was a parent. And I went to do this shamanic workshop called Dying to Live, when we spent days blindfolded and in silence, except when we came together in this sacred space to plan our death experience, which was a guided meditation on the last day. So we wrote our will and eulogies, and the idea was to be letting go of everything that we wasn't serving us anymore. For me, that was my death wish, and so I put my whole heart and soul into this course. And on the last day in this meditation, I had a huge out of body experience. And I met my husband who'd passed, and I met a spiritual teacher, another cult leader probably from India. And I was told to go and start training with this person who I'd never met before. And when I went back to, when I got grounded again and the course was finished, I called him up and he said to come to his ashram, air quotes, in Laguna Hills and start training with him. And I went there for a month, and the energy was really odd between us. It was really odd because he's a very little man. He's not very attractive, and yet there was this weird energy between us. And he'd already told me that he was gay, and he'd lived with a man as in a marriage or whatever for a number of years. And at the end of the month that I stayed there, he asked me to marry him. And I asked him about this, well, aren't you gay? And he said, no, well, I've healed all my issues. And I felt like that was my next step. I trust my intuition and I trust God. And even if the decisions don't look like they're, what I necessarily want or what, I just follow that advice. So I said yes, and we got married, and I brought my kids over from Australia, and we started living as a family. It was supposed to be the divine family, the blueprint for humanity. And that was in a house on a cul-de-sac in Laguna Hills. And we just lived what looked like on the outside a fairly normal life. Like the kids went to public schools and they did dance and taekwondo and all that sort of stuff. But at home, it was a whole different story where the cult leader had controlled everyone's everything from when you get up in the morning to kids had to chant and pray and chant his name. They had to bow to his picture, and we were vegan, and there were always consequences for whenever anyone didn't follow the rules or was disrespectful, disobedient, or just hadn't been honoring enough of the guru. And my son in particular was fairly rebellious, because I think the thing with children in cults is they can see through the bullshit, and that's what the children in the cult could see, and they really copped a lot of these punishments, which were ways of reprogramming through writing lines of affirmation, like I am obedient to my guru. I had to write, I am the wife of Christ, like 33 times a day for 99 days and all this stuff. And in addition to those types of punishments, there would be picking up trash, picking up dog shit, sleeping in the garage, sleeping in your car, being not being allowed to participate in events or travel or whatever it is. So we were all under that pressure to conform and obey, because there was always the fear of some kind of punishment. And of course, that included his verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and yeah. So that's how I got involved.
So let me just backtrack for a second and try to understand what I think I heard you say. So your husband passed away in your previous life before you met him, and you were meditating one day, and you saw this guru in this meditation,
I
and
did
it
a
so
guided meditation. So it was not just me. I was
oh, it was
guided.
guided
Basically, yeah, it
okay.
was a guided meditation where we created a Merkaba, which is our a form of light body. two inverted pyramids of light that spin in different directions, and we can use that to travel through time and space. So we created we've all got a Merkaba, just hold that image in your mind and you can energize it and use it or whatever. So we created a Merkaba, and that allowed us to travel beyond what, where my consciousness was limited at. So I broke through that and then had that outer body experience.
Is your guided meditation somebody talking to you?
Yes.
Okay.
It was a shaman. The shaman was speaking, and then so he guides us into expanded consciousness, and then where we have the experience. We're kind of left to experience the journey ourselves, and then after an amount of time or whatever, who knows? I don't know how long it was. Could have been 5 minutes or 55 minutes, and then he brings us back into our bodies, because I did go a long way out of my body.
And this person who was guiding you with his voice told you about this guru,
No,
and
that was my own experience.
really
Yeah,
interesting.
that was what happened to me. I listen to a lot of people who've had near-death experiences, and it's a similar type of experience where you just you leave your body, and then stuff happens. That's the best way I can say it. You can encounter other beings, other places,
You
and get
encountered
information.
this person.
Mhm. No, I didn't
Okay.
encounter him. I encountered a being who gave gave me information.
Gave you information
Yeah.
about this.
Uh, mhm.
So let's move forward a little bit in your story. Let's talk about your son a little bit. What exactly do you want people to know or understand about your son and what happened to him?
He was a brilliant light, and he challenged the cult leader, because the cult leader was just a hypocrite. He always tried to get all the attention and make all the jokes, and he wasn't even funny and all that, and my son really wasn't very tolerant of that, and he showed that by being fairly rebellious. And so he got like I said, he was got the brunt of the punishments, because he wasn't making it easy for this cult leader to live as the fabulous being that he thinks he is. He had to sort of be answerable to all of us in some ways by my son challenging him.
And how old was
And
your son at this time?
he was 7 and my daughter was 5 when we went there. And then we actually had sex one time and I got pregnant. So we had a daughter together. And so, yeah, I had 3 children at that time. And my son, so we lived in the cult for 7 years. It was living hell. And one day my son came home from school and he was really upset. And I said, "Do you want to talk about it?" He said, "No, I just need to sleep on it." And then the next morning he was gone from his bedroom. So I knew something was up. And we waited till the Saturday afternoon and called all his friends, and no one had heard from him, and we reported him missing. And the next day, the cult leader sent his assistant, who was the other whipping boy, for him. He sent him to look behind the house. We lived near one of those nature areas where there's big electrical towers running, and the assistant found my son with a neck wound and the kitchen knife next to him, and that was framed as a suicide because apparently my son realized he was gay, and he knew that was unacceptable to me, so he took his life, which are just heinous lies, the whole thing, all of it. I found out is every part of that's just pure evil. So I was blamed for that.
In the beginning,
Sorry.
did you believe that that was what happened?
In the beginning, I believed that my son had taken his life. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah,
Well, then at what point did you start was there a moment when you kind of were thinking that that wasn't the truth of what happened and that there had been some kind of cover up?
yeah. And I can't tell you exactly how, but that it took years to get free and clear of that. Like, that just did my head in after that. I really wanted to die after that. I spent 6 months in
Ugh,
bed just going breath to breath to breath. And once again, I had children, so I had to, find go deep within and find that will to live
right.
and start, uh, you know,
And if
living
I'm doing
again.
my math right, your son would have been like 14 at this time then?
Yeah,
Okay.
15. Yeah,
Wow.
he just turned 15.
15.
Yeah, so it took a while for the pieces of the story to unfold, and that only came through other cult members telling their story. Like, there were 2 boys in the cult in Melbourne who were brought in by their aunt, who's the cult leader there. She's just an evil witch. She brought her twin nephews in there, and they were groomed. They were told they were gay from the time they arrived in the cult. "You're gay, you're gay, you're gay, and if you don't accept that you're gay, your life is gonna be hell." And they were sent to the cult leader's bedroom whenever there was a retreat in Melbourne, and it wasn't until those boys became young men and reached out to me and told me what had happened to them that they then pieced it together and realized that was what was happening to my son, that he was being groomed.
So you didn't recognize the signs until after the fact, and then you heard that the same thing had happened to other boys in another spot, another location.
Right.
Wow.
I was so brainwashed that I accepted being in a celibate marriage, because that's all, we just had sex one time in 8 years, one time, because he said so many different excuses. I was too needy, I was too much like a man, I didn't deserve his touch, I was too disrespectful, and then he just decided that me being celibate was for my highest and best good, that was what I needed for my soul evolution. But meanwhile, he's having sex with the men in the cult, grooming the boys. He's on Grindr and Tinder, and every time he went to the gym, he's obviously, he has a sex addiction. He's the one that has an issue with his sexuality, and I didn't realize that either till after I left. He's having sex with the male cult members behind my back, and none of them obviously are saying anything to me. So
This is a little bit off topic, but by chance, have you ever watched the, documentary called Holy Hell about
yeah,
the
same. That this
okay, that
that
a
that
lot of your
whole
story is reminding me of that cult.
It is, it's similar. I know people from that cult. One of my best friends is from that cult, and
Ugh,
the only differences are that they had a lot more fun in that cult. They really, they were out in nature and,
yeah,
learning to dance, and, they really had we didn't. Ours was not fun at all, not
more
fun.
oppressive.
Yeah, more about just obeying him rather than seriously, our personal growth. But similar in the little type of guy, who's got, he's closetly gay and having sex with the men in the cult. I don't think he wasn't really a pedophile, but yeah, they're very similar.
No, yeah,
And,
as if
they
I
came out
remember
of
right, he
Hollywood.
didn't allow children in that cult.
Right. I remember that one. He was the guy that ran around in those skinny swimsuits, right?
Yeah, like the
Right,
Yeah.
the
Speedos,
Speedos.
yes.
The Speedos, right? Yeah.
Yeah, very, very that's the most similar cult to ours except for the children thing.
But you're right. That documentary showed that they were having fun. They were dancing in the water
Yeah,
and in the
they
forest
were.
with the butterflies, and yeah, at
Yeah.
least that's what the documentary portrayed. I don't
Yeah,
know
at the
what it was really
beginning, it
like.
kind of almost looked like just like a hippie commune about peace and love, and it
Exactly.
seemed
Right.
pretty benign at first.
I was
So
just
did
gonna say both those culture originated out of Hollywood. He was a
Ah,
failed actor. The cult leader I was in was a failed actor, and then they
ah,
went on to do what they did.
now,
interesting.
didn't you say that he was gay and that when he asked you to marry him, you said, but you're gay, and he said, well, my issues have been resolved,
Right.
and then you marry him, and then but didn't he only have sex once in 8 years? Okay, so obviously his issues were not resolved. Okay.
Obviously.
Not that being gay is an issue, but to him it was an issue.
I know,
Apparently,
yeah,
yeah.
it's still an issue for him, and this is one of the jokes that I have now of the cult. So he's supposed to be the second coming, right? That's what he calls himself. So after I left, he came out again as being gay because he'd already come out before me. So I call him the second coming out again.
Goodness. So I
Pretty
assume there
messed
was
up.
never an investigation into the death of your son then? There was never a formal investigation?
Well, he is being the spin doctor. He told the police it was a suicide, and it was all set up to look like a suicide. And I didn't know what to think. My
Right,
mind was
right.
gone. And the police didn't interview the last person to see my son. They just didn't. Basically, they just shut the door on the case, suicide, and then moved on from that because no one was asking any. There were some people like some
Right.
of his friends and some of his friends' parents who were not accepting of that, but I wasn't in any state to be able to
Well, for one thing,
gather
you were
my
still under
thoughts
the
to.
cult you were under the cult mind
Yeah,
control, plus you were in
I
shock from
was.
losing your child.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there was a lot of factors playing into that, so you weren't even questioning it at the time, so you didn't unravel that until, like, was it years later that you figured that out, or
Mhm. It was years later.
Wow, wow. Well, that
Years
had to
later.
be traumatic when you figured that out.
Yeah, it was traumatic, but it started to make sense. Yeah, everything started to make sense then as why things happened the way they did.
So, was that after you left, and if so, what ultimately ended up leading you out of the cult?
After my son died, like I said, I was, in a very, very dark place. And I went to see this guy who'd been the cult counselor because, in addition to having our healing sessions with the cult leader, we also were supposed to go because we're all so wounded, right? We've also got so many issues we have to work on. It's endless. And we had to see a just, and we're also supposed to see a counselor. And I was a very disobedient disciple, I must say. That was another reason why he said my son killed himself was because I was so disobedient. I wasn't giving my son the life that he wanted in the cult. We weren't flourishing as a cult because of me. So I didn't go and see this counselor until about 6 months after my son had passed. I knew I needed help. And he had since not been in that role anymore. He'd had his own epiphany. And I walked in the door and he said, I knew you'd come and see me one day. You know you're
Wow.
in a cult, don't you? And I said, no, I don't know I'm in a cult. I thought I was in an ashram with my guru. And he said, go home and Google cult characteristics, which I
Mm,
did. And then there it is. Charismatic leader who's the arbitrator of truth, who controls everyone's everything from what you eat, when you sleep, where you work, who you have sex with, who you don't have sex with, and then I started understanding what love bombing is and then hate bombing because I'd gone from, the most beautiful woman in the world to the Antichrist. I
right.
started to learn about gaslighting. And that was every day. That was my life. I know I was gaslit like from day one. Like I remember I was from Australia, and when I first came to the ashram, my job was like the housekeeper. So I had to do the shopping and cooking, all that. So, and he's so particular. He writes down the list of things to buy, and you've got to buy the right brands or else you got to take it back or pay him for it or whatever. So he told me to buy this particular brand of toilet paper, and I know what he said. And when I got home, he told me, "Yeah, I didn't tell you that. I told you this other one." And that, what gaslighting does, it immediately starts making you question yourself, doubt
Right.
yourself, and not trust your intuition and stuff like that. That sort of started from day one, and then it went on, and it was so difficult being in a relationship like that, especially with children, because he would say we had conversations we never had, or someone did something that it was just a total clusterfuck, really, basically the whole time. And I also understood about psychological operations, psyops. And for instance, when my daughter was born, he announced that she was the embodiment of Lord Ganesha, who's the remover of obstacles from the Hindu pantheon, the elephant faced deity. So he announced that she was this deity was going to be coming into the cult to help us all remove our obstacles between ourselves and God so we can be, one with God or whatever. So that was one of the psyops that he played on us. He would tell people that they're enlightened and that they should, everyone's got to give it's just total mind fuck for people. So once I understood that then I realized, oh my God, I'm in a cult. I'm in a cult. And then I had to figure out how I was going to get out because I was trapped by the fact we had a daughter together, and by law, I wasn't allowed to take her within 2 hours away from him. But I didn't even want to be the States anymore. And also he did this huge mind trip on me because he knows how devoted I am to serving God and my spiritual growth and evolution. And he told me that if I walked away from him, I'd be turning my back on myself, my soul, and on God. And he said that my screams would reverberate throughout the universe when I died and realized my mistake. So that was a real head trip that he put on me, and I think he finally let me go because he knew he was gonna have another death on his hands because I couldn't stand it anymore. I was clawing at my wrists trying to, I just wanted out. So I was able to leave and move to Kauai, which saved my life.
When did you have the daughter with him?
2001.
Was this early on when you moved in with him? Okay. I'm just chronologically thinking you had sex once in 8 years, and that couldn't have been your daughter. So obviously you had sex prior to that.
To
Eight
consummate the marriage, so within, the same, like, week that we got married or whatever. So, yeah, that
And
Wow.
so that was when your daughter was conceived, correct?
That's what I'm
Okay.
trying to establish, right, okay.
Yes.
yeah, and he never touched me again after that.
Wow. So,
I
It was
approximately how
excruciating.
long was it after you started reading and you realized you were in the cult, how long was it before you were actually able to get out of his grasp? Was that a long fairly long process or was it months or years or
It was probably within the year I was able to get physically out of his grasp, but because we had a
Right.
daughter, there had to be some communication, so I still wasn't completely free of him until, he stopped paying child support and, we didn't even have that connection. So it took years to get
What did
free.
what did he do to make money? Or was it
On
all
people, that's
con
what he
people?
did. He just got money from tithing. He just made people pay him money to be in his presence and listen to him. He's still doing it, like I said.
Did he
this
have
is
a brick and mortar building where he would preach, or he would just where would he preach?
In his home, the home was set up with the lounge room had his chair in it. It's a big chair and there's
Like a throne,
yeah, like a throne and his picture, and at the bottom there are flowers in bowls, and that was his,
l
where he
like Holy
performed.
Hell, just like the guy in Holy Hell. Yeah.
Exactly,
yeah.
yeah, and then people come along and, we get together for disciple training, it's called, which is really like it's basically demonic possession of people, that's what I've come to understand. People would go into these cathartic states, but it was demon possession. And he doesn't have any physical building, but he does talks in other, like, halls or whatever, because he does travel and has groups. They come together and, like, sing together or listen to him.
This kind of is a little off topic, but before we get into your deconstruction, I'm just kind of curious, does your daughter still have any relationship or connection with him, or is that
I was
severed?
just thinking that.
Well, she doesn't have any connection to me. This is one of the evil things
Oh,
about him is he's destroyed my relationship with my other
oh
2
boy.
daughters. Because
Ugh.
why this is what he did in the cult, he would tell them that I was crazy, that I was a bitch, that, I'm psychotic, that I need to be Section 8 or whatever, and so they got that brainwashing, and they
Well,
basically,
let's
they
hope
turned
they
against
wake
me.
up. Oh, let's hope they wake up
Yeah,
and
let's
you
hope.
can start to try to rebuild those relationships. That's heartbreaking. That breaks my
Oh,
heart because you had already lost one
it's
child. That's
I
devastating.
know. It's worse than the death because these are living people who've chosen
Right.
to end the relationship. And I know I've made mistakes. I'm not perfect. I've apologized. I have plenty of apology to do because, I could have walked any day. I could have walked, left the cult, and, my son would still be alive and maybe we'd all still be together. But as you know, that's not what happens when you're brainwashed and under mind
No,
control. And I
exactly.
came in I wanted a family. I wanted a community. I wanted, my kids to have a father or a
Right.
father figure anyway, so he promised all that. And I believed him, and I believed that I just need to stick to the program, and then one day it would all be good.
We'll be right back after a quick break.
Don't go anywhere. More Cultimatum is coming up.
Well, I just really I hope that one day your daughters, both of them, will wake up from that and they will contact you. Let's hope that that happens at some point in the near future for your
Thank
sake.
you.
So
Thank
so
you.
because that
I'm
that
not
really
holding my
does break my heart. That breaks my heart. So I do know that you wanted to go kind of deeper into the deconstruction and how you deconstructed a lot of what you learned. So let's start down that route so that you have the time to dive into that the way you want to. So Go ahead,
Okay,
we'll start at
great.
that point.
What happened when I came to Kauai was that I spent a lot of time in nature. I spent a lot of time in the ocean, staying connected to the earth. Really haven't worn shoes for many years. I stay grounded, directly connected to earth energy, and that helped calm my nervous system because I needed that. I needed to be just calm, balanced, and sourced by like pure energy and be in silence or just have nature sounds around me just so I really had to find out who I was. I didn't really know who
Right,
I was or what I wanted to do, so I just had to come into being really pretty still and quiet. I practice sun gazing every day, so I'm receiving like the highest form of consciousness, pure consciousness into my eyes and through to my pineal gland and pituitary gland, and that just helped expand my consciousness so I could take in more truth, more of the truth of reality. My perception just kept expanding. It keeps expanding through those practices. And then once I was able to, get grounded, then I started, figuring out what had happened to me and why, and understanding that it was because my mother had a narcissistic personality disorder and ran my family like a cult. My family was my first cult experience. And then so being I was set up. I was a perfect setup for a cult leader
right.
because I was had all those wounds. And then sometimes it's really heavy to talk about.
Oh, I
And
yeah,
then and then once I understood more of
Take your time.
once I understood why I got into the cult, then I had to understand more about what a cult is and
right.
how cult leaders operate. And so I studied pretty much every cult, that I could find and realized the same characteristics that I talked about in that first list that I'd read.
Yeah,
And then I began to see how those characteristics were operating on a global level. I could see how as a as a hum- humanity was being brainwashed, humanity was being controlled, humanity was being mind fucked, and that we were all under this mind control. And most people had no clue about that, and that mind control is done through black screen technologies, television, videos, mainstream media. These are all the tools that keep people in this group think and unable to recognize that there is a controlling faction that is affecting the way that we are as individuals and as a society. And we aren't free, really. Although we're sovereign beings, we're being controlled in ways that make us get on the daily grind of the 9 to 5 work. We all are supposed to participate in that cult activity with the tie wearing and the 9 to 5 grind. And so I began to see, it's not just cults just aren't religious groups. They're not just families. There's cults everywhere throughout society as well as one main cult. I understand that cults can be political parties or sports teams or like either transgender movement. Their cults are operating all throughout society. And I had people say to me, "Oh, I don't know how you could get in a cult." Well, most people have been inculcated in one way or another and have no clue that's happening. Because if you're not free to choose what you want to do with your life without consequences, then you're really in a cult. If there are punishments and negative consequences for not following the rules, like not paying taxes or, whatever it is, then it's a cult.
I would
yeah,
even say that work could be a cult.
Yeah.
You could be you could be in a job that you're there for, I don't know, 10 years or whatever, and I'll just leave it there, but I you were just saying you were citing many different examples, and I think even a job could be a cult.
Yeah. There are certainly companies act as cults, right? You have to follow the rules or else you're out. And
right.
you get ostracized and criticized.
People
And
would say, "Why don't you just quit?" But it's not that simple, so just like it's not that simple to walk away from a cult, so
yeah,
okay.
no, it's not that simple. So that's what I that's how I deconstructed myself from the cult, and then now what I'm doing is deconstructing myself from like this overarching cult that I can see is steering humanity in the direction of transhumanism, to this dystopian nightmare where we're all just digitalized and what I'm calling techno-humans, following scripts and not living as sovereign human beings, flourishing and enjoying life and being connected to nature and being connected to each other. That's something that's we need to do, for our physical and mental health.
Absolutely. I can relate to that. I mean, we were talking before we got on here, and that's exactly precisely one of the reasons that I live in the boonies is because we're surrounded by a lot of nature and forest and trees, and we spend a lot of time in nature, my husband and I, and we certainly feel like we gained a lot by moving out into the boonies. That was definitely a blessing for us.
Yes. Yeah, that's nature's been that's what my connection to nature is, what sources me, and it's what's healed me and continues to heal me. And most people have no idea how important it is to be connected to nature, to spend time in nature, because people are relating to life now through screens. We have 2 generations of humans who have grown up relating to life through a screen rather than through the natural world. And that's there's the dystopian future right there. And that's a cult effort. It's not just happening randomly. There's a controlling force that's driving driving us in that direction. So what else I learned is that light is key. Light is the key to our living life fully, to accelerating our soul evolution, to healing us on all levels. And for me, that's been come through my connection with the sun and sunlight. And as you know, there are many cultures and communities who do have the sun as you know, a central focus. And what I'm understanding is the light of the sun is increasing in intensity. And you probably know we just were inundated with solar storms, like some of the strongest solar storms that have been around. And that light is what's changing the nature of our DNA and our, ourselves and our society. And so that it's that light that can break us free from cult programming, so that we're able to emerge out of cognitive dissonance into, seeing a bigger picture. Because really, we're only perceiving just a fraction of reality. And in a cult, it's even smaller than that. Your world's just, very, very narrow. We weren't allowed to read other books. We weren't supposed to be watching television or even talking to people or associating with family members who were critical. So, it was a very narrow focused world. And through light, we can expand out of that narrow perception of reality into a bigger perception of reality. And then for me, I was able to, like I said, see cult programming pretty much everywhere, really, in different ways. And through this light, we are evolving and we are going to be breaking free from those cult programs that have kept us limited. And right now it looks pretty chaotic. It is very chaotic. And that is because the old structures, like the financial system and the religions and the medical model and law and even the education system, they have all been based on, that's what's kept people inculcated. Because, like, for instance, the education system came about from it was the British, right, 250 years ago, whatever, 200. They wanted to create a system to produce obedient factory workers. So they created the public education system that's still used today because it creates obedient workers who are going to then go out and get jobs and then get into the whole trap with money where they're in debt. You've got mortgages and you've got to live your life enslaved to the money culture. And right now, what we're seeing is a breakdown of those systems of control. There's a lot of people questioning the Western medical system. A lot of people saying what a absolute farce the political system is. and people waking up to the well, it's called the Great Awakening that's taking place in the moment. And that really is people waking up to the fact that there's this control system, this cult, and then the next thing is well, now what? How are we going to move forward as sovereign beings? That's what I've come to understand.
Wow, that is, deep. That's a lot of information, a lot to absorb.
Yeah, it is deep. And I know for a lot of people that I can be labeled a lot of things, but it's what I know to be true and what I can see and happening in the world.
Isabella, tell us where you are today. I don't mean geographically. We know you're in Hawaii. Are you remarried? Are you, I guess, single and be married or with somebody? Let's
I
start with
am.
that.
I am.
You
I've
are.
been with my current partner for 10 years now.
Good for you.
That cult leader wasn't my last narcissist. I ended up into 2 other relationships after that. And what I learned was the reason why I was in relationships with narcissists in the first place and why I stayed in the relationships because I had no self-love. Growing up with a narcissistic mother, that just wasn't something that she taught me or gave me. So I had to learn to love myself, which I did through affirmations. Like I said, I love you to myself like for years and treated myself kindly and didn't try not to judge myself and just treated myself really lovingly. And then I got to a point where I knew I knew I loved myself because my partner is not a narcissist. And yeah, we've been together 10 years. And
That's amazing.
yeah, well, that's a good outcome anyway.
Yes, that is, for sure.
Okay. We have a few minutes left. So I would like to give you an opportunity just to wrap up anything else you wanted to talk about your deconstruction. Did you feel like you got take a deep dive? Do you think you covered as much as you wanted to?
I just want to re-emphasize the how beneficial it is to spend time away from black screen technologies and in nature and just to get still and quiet and strengthen that connection between oneself and a higher power, whether you want to call it God or spirit or your higher self, universe, whatever, that connection. Never allow anyone to come in that connection again because we don't need any intermediaries between ourselves and God. And in a cult or a religion, you have someone who's acting as an intermediary between oneself and a higher power. So that's also how you know you're in a cult too, because that no one should be interceding in that relationship. It's just personal, you and God. So I found that connection through nature and continue to strengthen it every day through nature and to be listening and tuning into intuition. That's like feelings that come from my body or visions in my mind, and also looking for following guidance that might come through signs from through the natural world. And so then I know that I'm following the right path so that I'm in the right place at the right time doing the right thing.
I had a conversation today with somebody at work, and they were talking about if you believe in God or spirituality and you would like to pray or meditate, you should be able to go to a place of your choice and do that without anybody else. And I think that's what you're talking about. So no priests, no nuns, no Buddhists, no monks, no
No building.
gurus, no building. So that's exactly and you keep talking about the black technology. You're talking about cell phones, right? Like
They're black screens, which are scrying devices. They're black magic.
right. Oh,
Well,
agreed.
they brainwashing people. You can see that with as soon as television came in, you know what happened, and people don't realize that they think they're just devices for entertainment, but they're not. They're really black magic
Yeah,
working on our subconscious minds.
they are. And if we had time, I would get into a little thing about what I discovered about myself and scrolling through social media, but we'll save that for
That's
maybe the outro.
that
Time
I
for
mean,
questions?
I think so. That
Go
was
ahead, Mel.
I mean, I was just gonna say that that whole thing was just really beautiful, and because I love nature and love being in nature, and I always feel my best and feel the most centered when I am in nature, and I can so relate to what you are saying. It does resonate with me. But and I don't know Andrew, but I almost feel like she's kind of answered your question, but I think we'll let her see if
I
she
think
wants
she
to go
has,
into it a little further,
but
but
I'll let. I'd like to give her an opportunity to rephrase it in another way, but
yeah.
I'd like to agree with Melody. I know where Melody lives, and Hawaii is God. If I could only get there. But in my retirement, which is soon, I'm getting out of the urban jungle, and I'm going to go someplace where it's not quite Hawaii and not quite the middle of Michigan, but it's going to be further away from the buildings and the pollution
The hustle and
it's
bustle.
yeah, the hustle and bustle. It's going to be near the ocean, and I grew up in the Southwest. I grew up in New Mexico and Arizona, so I know that piece of looking out over the Southwest desert at nighttime or during a thunderstorm, or or when the lightning strikes. It's just amazing the power that's coming from above. Okay,
Absolutely. So
okay,
disempowered if we're not connected to nature.
yeah, it's
It
just
makes it physically and
fascinating.
mentally sick to not be connected to nature.
It's fascinating. Isabella, so we did ask you, we told you at the beginning we were going to each ask you a question, and I think Melody's right. You probably did answer it, but I'm going to ask it again and see if you want to rephrase it or you believed in God, you joined this cult and you got out and you went to Hawaii. Where are you today? I asked you that geographically and romantically, but now spiritually, where are you today? Do you have a God? Do you believe in God? And I'm going to stop there because I don't want to put words in your mouth.
I have a rock solid connection to God. My mother was also an atheist, so I grew up uh, feeling superior to other people who believed in God, like she told us they were foolish and idiots and subhuman almost. But I am proud to say that God's my number one love, and I'm so blessed, so blessed. I'm so blessed that I can serve, offer my life and my love and my light to serve God. So, yeah, that's where I am. Deeply in love and deeply grateful and infinitely blessed beyond measure.
So it's safe to say that you don't go to church on Sundays. Your church is down
In
the beach,
nature.
down to the beach, or up to the volcanoes, or wherever.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, all right, Melody, you're up.
Isabella, if there's somebody listening that might be finding themselves in a similar situation to you and they're starting to have doubts and they're starting to see through the cracks, what would be your words of advice to them?
To listen to that, listen to that. That's your intuition talking to you,
Mhm.
and pay attention, and then follow any other guidance that's you're getting, whether it's to talk to someone else or read a book or, ask for help or whatever. Just follow that guidance that you're getting because that's your higher self talking to you. So trust that, trust it. And know that if you are in a relationship, even with another person, or you are in a group or in a like you're saying, a workplace or whatever, where you aren't free to do what you feel that you need to do, what you're guided to do. If you're not free to do that, then you are in a cult. And I mean, you can choose to stay, but if you want to avoid suffering, then get out. And you might need to get support from, it's really important to have support because once you get out, then you're kind of you're lost because you've lost yourself already. And then so it's important to have some support, whether that's from family members or whatever, or friends. And but the main thing is to know that you are being that's your higher self prompting you to make a move. And I just want to say for the other people who can see people who are in cults, and you guys have obviously interviewed a lot of people like that, there's conflicting advice from cult professionals about what you should do if there's a friend or a family member in a cult. And I've heard it say that you shouldn't tell people that they're in a cult because that will just drive a wedge in your relationship, and it'll also drive them further into a cult. But if I hadn't been told I was in a cult, who knows? I would have gone, there would have been a lot more suffering. So I feel that there's a way that you can introduce that concept to someone else who's in the cult. And for me, it would have been, my parents had the time wherewithal to get a private investigator to have photographed this guy hooking up with whatever's and done a forensic audit of the account so I could see that he was stealing money. And then you can present the evidence to the person. So rather than just saying, oh, you're in a cult, and then that word cult has also got black magic around it too. So there's this immediate reaction to just want to like move away from it. But if you can present some factual information, and also maybe there are ex-cult members who have left that could be involved, so that it's not so that there's evidence. It's not just
Right. Other
your
members that are from the same cult, you mean?
Almost like an intervention, but
yeah.
yeah.
But yeah, I think that it's important to speak up.
Very good advice.
And say something.
Isabella, I think that, and I hope that this has been part of your deconstruction, part of your healing. I can almost see from your emotional reaction to this that it has been, but we just want to thank you so much for coming on and sharing all of this with us.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity. And you are right. Every time I share this story, because I only started speaking about this a couple of years ago. It took me 15 years to even talk about it. And yes, this is part of my healing. And I hope that some of the information that I shared is beneficial to people who are in cults or feel that they're in a cult, or else know someone who is in a cult.
Isabella, this is going to be a sort of a funny, but are you on any black magic social media that you would like to tell the audience?
Where am I being a black magician? Well, I'm terrible with social media. I don't like it at all, but I have a YouTube channel called feelingbetternaturally.love, where I share medicines from nature, because I've written a book. I'll just show you this I hope that's okay.
Absolutely. So what is your book's name?
New Human of New Earth. So this is about the cult that humanity's in, and then ways that we can escape, and the medicines that we can use from our body technologies, whether that's speaking or moving or breathing, and medicines from nature, sun gazing, grounding, purified water, whatever it is, and then spiritual technologies that we can use to strengthen us and empower us so that we can break free from this cult, and then where we're going, where we're the new earth that we're creating every time we act out of loving kindness.
And people can buy the book
from Amazon, and my website is feelingbetternaturally.love, and on my website there's the books available, other books that I've written, and also my artwork and other writings and stuff like that. So, but no Facebook, no Instagram, no Snapchats.
Good. Okay. Melody will put all of that in the show notes.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Yes. Thank you so much, Isabella. Thank you so much for coming on and being vulnerable with us and sharing that, because I know there are parts of your story that aren't easy to share, but it's been a pleasure having you on the show.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. And I just want to thank you for the work that you're doing, because it's really important that people understand about cults. Otherwise, it's we can all be caught up. So you're doing really important work. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. If we can save one person, it's worth it. So
we like the idea of bringing the awareness out there, just like you said. I mean, you don't know what you don't know, and people need to know.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And once again, we want to thank Isabella so much for coming on the show and sharing her story and her experience and her knowledge with us. What a unique and interesting interview story, and her deconstruction, and
wow.
Yeah, just very.
That's all I can say is wow.
Yeah, not our typical interview for sure.
Very powerful, and she lost a child.
Yeah,
and
is estranged. I think estranged from
her first child, and then she lost two daughters, but not to death, but to Yeah, she
Estrangement.
is. Yeah, she's separated from them,
Yeah,
but the first one. So here's a mother who doesn't have children
yeah,
technically, or she's not
yeah.
in touch with them, or can't
And I
be. And
still just really hope that that changes for her in the near future.
I hope so.
I'm gonna put
I,
those vibes out there that I just hope that her girls have a change of heart and reach out to her and see through the BS and realize that they need her in their
I
life or in their life.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I maybe they'll realize this guy is a fruitcake and
Yep.
a
Yeah.
wacko, and I just don't understand. And this is not the first time, by the way, that we've heard that the father somehow or the cults were able to maintain control over the children, or
Right.
and the parent who left the cult lost a child,
Yes.
and I've heard this several times, and
It
I just
happens.
don't understand how that can happen. Now, if her children are of age over 18, there's nothing that can be done. But I think in the court of law, if they're minors,
Yeah, I think they were still seeing her when they were children, but they probably had visitation or something, but she
uh,
said the youngest one was born in, I think she said 2001, so she's gotta be 25 now.
she's over 18. She's
So,
25.
she's an
Yeah,
adult, so she's, yeah,
yeah.
able to make her own choices, but I'm with you legally, when you're talking about minors, I think there's a lot more the law can get involved and there's a lot more control there, but obviously when they're adults, if they're still under that brainwashing and that influence, they might not see the truth for what it is.
Right, and I like the fact. I wish we talked more about her book, because remember the episode we did. I don't know if it aired yet, but we just talked about it. The woman from Ecuador who's doing the
Yeah,
medicine.
Dina Moore, yeah, she was episode
Dina Moore,
103, it's
right, okay.
already aired.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's
Yes, we
already
did with
aired,
the plant
and
medicine and yep.
so she's doing almost the same thing. She's in Hawaii doing earth medicine. So I don't
Yeah.
know if it's plant medicine, but we didn't I wish we got to were able to get deeper into that as well, but we'll put that book on in the show notes.
Yes, that will be in the
She
show
held the
notes.
book up. It's a big book.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah,
yeah.
so thank you once again to Isabella for coming on and sharing her even at the painful parts of her story and her experience with all of us. As always, thank you for listening to Cultimatum. We truly appreciate your support as we work to expose the truth and highlight the voices of these survivors.
If you're enjoying the show, please take a moment to rate and review us on Apple and Spotify. It helps more people discover the podcast, creating a greater awareness. And don't forget to follow, share, and keep tuning in to our latest episodes.
You can also follow Cultimatum on Instagram, TikTok, Pinterest, and YouTube for extra content and updates.
And be sure to join our Facebook community, Cultimatum Podcast, where we continue the conversations and keep you posted when new episodes drop.
And if you're a cult survivor looking for additional support and connection, we invite you to join the Facebook group Cult Escape and Healing.
You can also find more information about the show, including our full legal disclaimer, on our websites at cultimatumpodcast.com or anonymousandrewpodcaststudios.com.
And if you have a story related to cults or human trafficking that you'd like to share, you can reach us at cultimatumpodcast@gmail.com.
And if you'd like to support the show, you can do that by using the link in the show notes called Buy Us a Cup of Coffee. Your support helps cover production costs and allows us to keep bringing these important stories to light.
And as always, stay safe, stay informed, and remember, you are not alone.